Mr. Gavea.
How are you?
Good, man.
How's
How are
everything
you?
going? Good, thanks.
Good. Gabe, what's up, brother? You in a place to talk, or you just
How are you, brother?
nah, I'm doing really, really well. Been a long
Nice.
time. For those of you,
Is it?
Gabe was one of the first people when I switched schools when I was in fifth grade. Gabe was one of the first friends I had back in middle school, and we probably haven't chatted in I don't know, maybe 15 years, maybe more.
Ah,
Yeah, I mean, it's been a while.
wow.
It's been we've known each other since the fifth grade.
Fifth
Went to
grade.
high school and everything. It's been a long time.
Yeah, so I started seeing on social media, and again, the power of social media. I saw Gabe started selling real estate a couple of years ago, right, Gabe?
Well, no, I started. I got my license probably like 10 years ago.
Yeah,
But I owned a publishing company. Uh, at the same time, but COVID kind of put a pause to all of that, and so I went into real estate. I would say full time, probably like 6 years ago.
yeah, that's
Yeah.
awesome. So Gabe's out of Connecticut. Where are you in Connecticut now?
I am I'm at the Coldwell Banker in South Windsor.
Nice, nice.
Yeah.
So we're gonna give it a couple more minutes. Mark Ramey's gonna jump on. He's a fellow agent down in Florida. Great guy. So we're gonna work with him because he was at the same event that I was. And for those of you who don't know, there was an EXP event down in Miami Beach. It was a 3-day, 4-day event. Um, how many of you guys have been to like real estate brokerage conferences, whether it be Keller Williams, like the big national events? Have you guys been to those before?
I have.
Yeah, Dan,
Uh,
what's been your experience with the national events? Have you enjoyed them? What's like, do you find a lot of value in them, or
yeah, I do. Sometimes they're so big, it's tough to concentrate because there's a lot going on, unlike the masterminds, which is a smaller group. So, they all have their different pros and cons, but certainly always, get some good nuggets to take back and value and get to also meet a lot of agents around the globe, really.
yeah? This was my first. I've been to a lot of real estate conferences, but most of the ones that I've been to, or all of them up until now, outside of some regional stuff, all of them have been real estate coaching companies that I've been a part of. And so it's been sort of a specific niche of people that are all kind of interested in doing the same thing. So when I would go to Mike Ferry events back in the day, there wasn't a whole lot of variation of ideas on how to do business and how to, different angles and things to think about. Everybody was kind of singularly focused on prospecting, lead generation, which is obviously extraordinarily valuable, but there wasn't a whole lot of outside conversation because the methodology of that organization was such that that if you get distracted by something else, you're not going to be putting the time and attention into the lead generation that you should. So it was sort of limited focus, which again can be really valuable if it's actually producing results. But I think what I found by this sort of national event is that you get a lot of very powerful real estate agents, a lot of really successful people in the same space that perhaps do it differently. They do things and they accomplish sort of outstanding goals, but approach real estate in a much different way. There's a lot of different ideas, and so that's what I wanted to primarily focus on. I was sort of really surprised at the event because I had assumed, based on previous regional events with other brokerages, that it was just going to be a lot more yay rah rah, like a lot of enthusiasm, but not a whole lot of substance. And then you go out at night and everybody goes down to the bar, they get drunk, they show up at 10, 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock the next day, and nothing actually really gets done at these conferences. So I think it was eye-opening to me to see that it wasn't so much, what I expected, but there was a lot more value that came out of the event. And when you're putting on an event with arguably, I think there was close to 5,000 people at the event, these events are, general session tickets for these events are $1,000. And if you get a VIP ticket, it's like 1,800. So they actually have a lot of money to invest into really good speakers. And they certainly did. They had, outside of the founder, Glenn Sanford, who's a billionaire. They had another billionaire, Jesse Itzler, that presented, and he was outstanding. Just the quality of presentation was really, really good, which for me at this point in my career is something that I'm really focusing on, is how to have attention and, you know, command an audience and be able to deliver a message that is going to be able to be received and understood by the audience. So a lot of what I was getting out of it was what I'm really looking for. In addition to that, you know, I'm looking obviously to be able to present some information that would have an impact on all of you guys. So first of all, I appreciate everybody showing up. Obviously, people are going to be coming in and out over the next hour, 90 minutes. And my thought is I'm going to bring up a couple of different topics. Number one is social media, because I think that that's something that everyone, especially on this call, I know that everyone has kind of dipped their toe in the water. They have these social media profiles set up. But even myself, it's been challenging to sort of really understand the value. So I wanted to share some of what I learned at the event through social media. And then we're going to go over just a little bit about relationship building and then some mindset stuff. And if and when Mark Ramey down in Florida joins us, he's got a couple of topics that he's going to bring up as well. Can you check in on him too? And we'll go from there. So starting with social media, does everyone have social media pages? I'm assuming everybody kind of has the general Instagram, Facebook. Some of you guys are on TikTok. Is anybody actively posting on YouTube by a show of hands? Anybody? I know Pedro just started. We got Dan doing it as well. So I think what's interesting is if you told me a couple of years ago that I'd be presenting to a group of real estate agents on social media, I would have told you you're fucking crazy. I mean, Matt and I used to mastermind, Matt Jackson, who's on the call, he and I used to mastermind 10, 11 years ago. And I was so singularly focused on prospecting and cold calling. I viewed social media very much as a social activity. I didn't see a whole lot of value in the connections that people were making. I was much more a consumer than a contributor on social media. I really didn't understand the value of these platforms and the way that they capture people's attention. And so what I want to share with you is just a couple of thoughts that have helped me, because I think the vast majority of you guys have followed me on social media. That's perhaps where a lot of us have connected. And I think that speaks volumes into the power of attention. And so in no uncertain terms right now, what we've determined is that social media is all about attention, and attention is currency. So I used to prospect 200 days a year, 210 days a year. I would talk to 50, 52 contacts per day. And so on any given year, I would talk to between 8,000 and 12,000 people. That's a lot of conversations about real estate, which can be extremely valuable. It built the business that I have right now. But what's interesting is that took 4 to 5 hours every single day. So more than half of the day I would spend prospecting and cold calling, and I would spend 0 time on gaining any social media attention. Over the past 18 months, I've had, now the numbers are up close to 750,000 impressions on people. And now a lot of those impressions are just going to be people scrolling through. So take that with a grain of salt. But the fact is that over the course of 18 months, and even if you look at maybe 400,000 or 500,000 of those have been over the last year, I can physically have the time to have a communication and a contact with 8,000 to 10,000 people if I'm diligent and motivated. And I could also spend a limited amount of time potentially having a reach that goes to 500,000 people on the same year. And I think it has a multitude of effects. It can create a connection, a parasocial relationship with your client database, which will ultimately make it a lot easier for you when you go out and actually try to obtain the business. People are going to check you out online. They're going to find your social media pages. They're going to check you out. And if that if that profile and that messaging is consistent with who you are, when you go out to the house to do a listing presentation or you sit down with a buyer, those conversations are going to be exponentially easier because they've already done their research. They've seen who you are. You're attracting buyers and sellers who are going to just be that much more connected to who you are. They're going to be the type of people that want to do business with you, and they're going to confirm that through social media. So again, I think it can be an incredibly powerful tool. But what was true for me is that I had a very limiting belief that it was valuable. I was really, really concerned about sort of how I was being perceived. When all of you guys think about posting stuff on social media, were you guys like me? Are you guys concerned about sort of how the messaging or the video or the post is going to be perceived by the people that follow you?
Sure.
Of course, right? Like, how could you not? I mean, I think I've always been a little bit more concerned than the average person about my appearance. That's why for the first 15 years of my career, I wore a suit and a tie every single day, to the point if somebody saw me socially, they wouldn't even recognize me if I didn't have a suit on. But that was because I was trying to play the character that I thought everybody wanted to see out there. And what's really been true with social media over the course of my the last 18 to 24 months is that if you go back and you look at all of the posts and all of the stuff that I put out at the beginning, it was very robotic. It took me a long time to produce any content that I felt like was valuable to go out. And what happens over time is you become more comfortable because you realize that the biggest critic you have is just yourself. So when people are scrolling on social media, nobody stops and analyzes a video that I put out like I analyze a video. I'm like, well, my beard looks stupid, or I'm wearing glasses in that one. My shirt looks a little off. That's not really representative of how I look. And I can guarantee you, I mean, just think about it when you scroll through videos, you don't make those observations of anybody else. So why would anybody else make those observations of you? And what you end up determining over time is that even if that person does, who the fuck cares? So you start to become numb to the opinions of other people, because at the end of the day, the people that your message resonates with, that you have an impact and an influence on, they ultimately won't care about the things that you think they will. What they care about is the value of the message that you're delivering to them and guiding them through. So if you're providing value, whether it's entertainment, whether it's education, whether it's a combination of both, whether you're guiding people through a process, whether you're telling a story, the people who are following you for a reason. The ones that enjoy and like your content, that connect with you, they're going to continue to follow you. And the ones who don't, and it's just a natural filtering process to bring your tribe and your client database into your sphere so that you can do business with them. So I heard this once, that if you're not embarrassed by what you put out on social media a few years ago, then you're not actually growing. You're not actually learning or evolving. And this is the truest test of that. I go back 6 months and I'm embarrassed about the product I was putting out 6 months ago. I go back 2 years and I'm like, holy shit. Right? So of course you're going to be embarrassed in the moment that you're putting it out, but moreover, it shows the growth. It's like a timeline. You know, social media, what just popped up in my head is social media is more like you can see the change and the growth, much similar to like when you watch your kids grow. When you watch your kids grow and you go back 2 years ago, you're like, holy shit, they were so young. They were so small. Look at where we were. Look at the place we were at, right? This is a running dialogue of the evolution of who you are as a person, the value that you're providing to others. And I think that that's a really powerful testament to illustrating how much growth you've had. Because on a day-to-day basis, on a monthly basis, we tend not to notice these things, right? Just like if you're in proximity to somebody else and they grow their hair out or they grow a beard, like you don't notice it over time, like on a day-to-day basis. But if you see a photo from somebody, or if you see a relative that you haven't seen in a long time, those things are very apparent to illustrate the differences over time. And I think that that compounding effect, I think that that visual representation of how long you've come or how far you've come can be really, really valuable. So I have some other thoughts on social media, but I've been talking for a little bit and wondering what questions do you guys have about social media right now? For those of you who are doing it or those of you who aren't, do you guys have questions about social media? Is there stuff that I can cover for you that'll be impactful? Don't all jump at the same opportunity. So here's a couple of things. I think that the barrier to entry with social media is going to continue to grow. So what you could do to get attention 5 years ago is not the same thing that will grab attention right now, right? 5 years ago, if you were putting videos out on social media, you were one of the only people that was doing it, especially in the real estate space. Now, if you're not putting out videos, you're not going to gain any attention, right? Before, you could just flip your camera on, no words down at the bottom of the screen. The production quality didn't need to be high, but every single day there's going to be more videos posted on social media than the day before. Everybody is looking to grab attention from consumers because they understand attention is a valuable currency. So if they have people's attention, they can guide them to wherever they point their spotlight of awareness. So if you're looking to highlight a real estate property and you have attention, you're going to be able to automatically just get more views, more attention to that product. And so more and more people are realizing that the attention game is so important. And so if right now, I would argue that with production quality and that sort of thing, you can start to get people's attention with $500 or $1,000 a month through a social media company that will help you edit and post, and or you'll have to spend a lot of your time doing it. But 2 years from now, what does that look like? Is it $2,500? Is it $5,000 a month? How much production quality will you need to put in order to get the same results or better results? Because what I think you're going to do is you're going to start to see people float to the top that put the time and energy into social media, and the people who just take it casually, again, their ability to communicate on a broad scale is going to go down over time. Would people agree with that? How many people here have a social media company that works on their videos and content? So I see Mark, I know Dan does. Anybody else? Let's see. So Matt asked, what company do you use to put content out and how much does it cost? So right now I'm with a company called Social Imprint, and I pay around $1,100 a month. And what that does is that gives me 4 videos per week and 4 static posts. They also give content and creation ideas. And so basically what I can do is I can shoot a raw video. It can be 2 or 3 minutes long. All I do is I upload that raw video to a shared Google Drive. And then the editors will take that video, they'll cut it down to a 30 or 60-second video. They'll put the captions in, they'll put the hashtags, they'll schedule it, they'll put the words at the bottom, and then they'll post it. So all I really have to do is get them content, and then I don't have to do much else. This is an interesting thing. So Ashley and I were talking yesterday. How many videos did you shoot that you deleted yesterday? She said over 50.
Wow.
So she took the time to shoot videos over the summer, over the early fall, stuff that isn't relevant anymore. So she took the time to shoot the video, but because of her schedule, she's done amazing work this year as far as production and everything else. But the time wasn't there in order to edit the videos and put them out to the degree and the quality that she wanted to. So it never got done. So even though she shot the content, it didn't get out there and was able to be consumed by the general public and by her followers because of time constraints and her desire to make sure it's perfect. Yeah, she's nodding her head, right? That's the things that I'm working on with her, because at the end of the day, this stuff doesn't have to be perfect, especially in short form. Social media doesn't have to be perfect. It's going to be consumed for a certain period of time and then it's going to disappear. Nobody scrolls down and looks at my videos that I put out 12 months ago on Instagram.
Hey,
Nope.
Ben, how do you quantitatively measure the results from social media?
The social media company does it. So there's metrics within each platform that will measure your analytics. So it's on, and my camera's being used to be recorded from a different angle, so I can't pull it up for you. But there is insights within social media that will show you how much um, watch time you've had, how much interaction, how many comments, all of that kind of stuff. So you can track that on a monthly basis or quarterly basis. Um,
Yeah, I look at my insights,
yeah,
at
so
least
it's,
once a week,
yep.
but I'm wondering, is there a way that you can kind of turn that into how many additional sales you're getting, to
Yeah, so
justify the cost you're paying for it?
So, James, really good question. So, here's here's what I believe with social media. I think it's a really long game. I don't know that, and that's what's tough about this, even for me personally, because of the my mindset for so many years, which was to prospect and lead generate. I would know how many contacts I would need to make to get a listing appointment. I used to just have to talk to 87 contacts to get a listing appointment. And so I knew if I needed more appointments, all I had to do was sit on the phones for like 2 days and I'd get another appointment. This is hard to quantify. I think what you're going to see, James, over time is that it creates that, again, I go back to that parasocial relationship. It creates that relationship between you and your audience that makes it easier for them to know you and like you, and it makes the appointments and obtaining the business that much easier, right? So I think that that's what you're going to see. Your reach and audience, it's going to be hard to quantify. I got this listing as a direct result because I don't know that, at least at this size, I don't know that anybody finds me on social media, calls me to sell their house, and that's the only metric that they use to determine whether they want to work with me. I think what's more likely is the fact that people see my name around town, they see signs, they might see me here, there, or the other place. They get confirmed through social media that I know what I'm doing, that I'm a professional agent, that I'm guiding other agents on how to do business. I think it's a secondary metric to just confirm that they're making the right choice, and it makes it that much easier. So I don't candidly have to work very hard when I walk through a door to get a listing. Now, I still provide all of the value as if I do need to work hard, but candidly, it's just a lot easier for me to obtain that business. Does that make sense?
Yep.
I also
Yeah, it
think
does.
it's something that's like way over time. So if you look at it, like right now on Instagram, I only have like 1,500, 1,600 people that follow me on Instagram. And so part of me sees other people 6,000, 8,000, 20,000, 50,000, 100, 200,000 followers. But here's what I'll say. My 1,500 people, for the vast majority, is either agents who are getting to know me and understand whether or not partnership at my brokerage makes sense, or they're my local community that potentially will do business with me. So the fact is that you don't need to have a large audience. When I look at, the attention that I'm getting on a monthly basis, if I go and I have 50,000 impressions across the platforms that I do business on in a singular month, that's like filling Gillette Stadium full of people that hear a message that I'm saying. So even if you get 200 views on a piece of content, that's extraordinarily valuable. I think people have this like competitive thing that I have to have a lot of views. I have to have it. If you post twice a day, right, every single day of the year, and you get 200 views on, I mean, that's better than trying to get 1,000 views and you only posting once every other week. Consistency is the game with social media. You have to be consistent. And so what was true for me is that there was no way that I was going to be consistent unless I outsourced the editing and the posting. I would never post 4 to 7 times a week videos if I had to do it myself. There's no fucking way. And so depending on where you are with your career, you need to determine whether or not you have the time to edit the videos and you know, the consistency to do it over time. Otherwise, at some point, you need to hire somebody to help you with that process. And everybody's going to be at a different point. But at some point, if you believe in this and you do it consistently over time, it will return results that will shock you. I promise you. One of the things that I am really picking up on right now, there's two more things on this that I want to touch on, and then I'll hand it off to Mark Ramey. I'll do a quick introduction so he can go over one of his points. But I believe the attention game right now is such that you want to be looking at converting your followers from short form to long form. And what I mean by that, so long form is YouTube. Any video that's 30 minutes or longer, preferably 60 minutes. And why YouTube is such a valuable platform and why most of the people that I'm following are trying to convert followers into YouTube subscribers is because YouTube is a unique platform where your videos and your posts don't get lost down the page. I think the videos on YouTube will live in perpetuity as consumable content that people can use to get to know you. So on YouTube, if anybody uses YouTube consistently, YouTube right now, you can set up categories of things. So if you create content for agents, you can have educational content for agents and a whole block, a library of information for them. If you're putting out content on local activities throughout the town, which we're going to start doing, you can have an entire section on what it's like to live in Mansfield, what it's like to live in Foxborough, Connecticut, whatever, like trails in the local area. If you're new to the area, what dentist should you use? Right? That's information that lives in perpetuity. It is searchable because it is the second largest search engine behind Google is YouTube. So somebody searches dentists in Mansfield and my video pops up where I highlight a local dentist, right? Not only is that pouring out and helping the community that I live in, right, help their business, but it also shows me as the guide to help them throughout the process. So the entire game is going from short form to long form so that you can create a library of content for people to either get to know you or to attract people who otherwise wouldn't have consumed your content on short form. The last thing I will say is that on social media, authenticity is king. I think we as a society try to create this this image of what we think people want to see. And I think authenticity about speaking your mind about what you truly believe, being vulnerable to either make mistakes or to sound stupid or like you don't know. Authenticity matters. And when you're trying to connect with your audience, I think if you're vulnerable and you're talking about sort of things that are meaningful for you and you're genuinely trying to help, I think that connection that you make is much stronger and more valuable than if you're just trying to say things in order to seem like a certain person or like it's almost forced content. Now, the only way that you'll get authentic with that over time is by the consistency at which you do it. So you're not going to be able to sit down in your first post and just be completely authentic. But that's where you get over time. You do this consistently over the course of 6 to 12 to 18 months. All of a sudden, you're going to realize that the voice that you have and the connection that you're making is much more meaningful and impactful. And so authenticity matters. You're going to get there with the consistency that you do it. Any other questions? I didn't look in the, is there any questions in the chat? All right. Any other social media questions? Social media matters.
Then I have a thought that maybe you covered this. I apologize. I had the wrong link, so I was trying to get into the wrong Zoom. I'm super excited to be here. Did you already talk about Story Brand?
Yeah, so that was one of the things that I was going to cover.
I put Story Brand in the chat. Do you want me
So-
to take something else and then you come back to it?
Yeah. So story branding is, I think it's something that Mark brings it up because we're starting to learn that to have influence on other people, and that can be through social media, in person, at events, whatever it might be. Story branding is critical to connect with your audience. So if you'll notice, when I started this conversation, I started it with a story about my limiting beliefs about social media. And I was vulnerable about admitting that I was concerned about what other people thought about my appearance, about my message, about what I was saying. And I think that those things, if you create a story brand, it allows the audience to make that connection with you and actually consume the information that you're trying to relay. And so there's some specifics on story branding. I wasn't going to go into it in detail, but if people are interested in story branding and how that affects social media and or your influence on other people, I have a lot of notes on story branding, and we can
I
even
share
cover
the
that next
concept?
month too.
Is it okay if I share the concept?
Yeah, please.
Okay, so if you guys want, get this book called Building a Story Brand. Aaron Novello has turned us on to this, and I think it's really powerful because it's delivering a message of essentially, and I put it into the chat so you can follow it. You guys can copy it out of the chat. And the whole purpose is, most people, when they're posting on social media, they're coming from the perspective of me, right? Look, here's a video of me on my vacation. Here's a video of me at the gym. Here's a video of, me in the listing that I just sold. And who is that conversation or that dialogue about? Anybody?
Me.
Yes, exactly. Thank you. So if you look in the chat, you'll see the story brand format essentially spelled out simply is there's a character. The character has a problem. They meet a guide. The guide gives them a plan. Then they call that character to action, and it ends in success, and it helps that person to avoid failure. So think of it from the author of the book. He's a super brilliant guy, and he's super, super wealthy. I can see why. Is Donald Miller. And he shared the concept or the idea that story branding happens actually in every single good movie or book. He said stories have been told for all of human history. And that's what actually captures people's attention. So for example, if you think about like Star Wars, okay, there's a character, right, that meets a guide. So the character that needs the guide is who in Star Wars? Who needs a guide?
Luke.
Luke, thank you. Yep. So, and who's Luke's guide?
Yoda.
Yoda or Obi-Wan, correct? Yeah. So Luke has a problem. He needs to learn the ways of the Force. Can he do it on his own?
No.
Nope, he can't. And that's the intention. So he can't do it on his own. So he meets a guide, Yoda or Obi-Wan, and now they give him a plan. They're teaching him how to be successful in using the ways of the Force. This plan ultimately is supposed to end in Luke's success, which it does. If you remember, he destroys the Death Star, which helps him avoid failure. It helps the rebels to avoid failure. Now, the author's premise in this book, his whole idea is, rather than making ourselves the hero, Luke is the hero, correct? Make our clients the hero. So another example of this would be Harry Potter. In Harry Potter, who is the hero?
Mark, I'd just like to say that I haven't watched Star Wars or Harry Potter, so I can't contribute to this conversation.
That's okay. That's all right. Who has anyone else seen Harry Potter in this? Show of hands. Okay. In Harry Potter, who is the hero? I'm sorry.
Harry.
Harry the hero?
Harry's the hero, right? Now, does Harry know that he's an awesome magician or that he can do wizardry?
Not in the beginning.
No, not in the beginning. He has to meet a guide, and his guide was who?
I think Dandor.
Dumbledore. Thank you. Yes.
Something like that.
Exactly. So he meets Dumbledore. Dumbledore gives him a plan and then calls him to action to use his magic, right? And then ultimately he ends in success. So if we're shooting videos, and that's the story brand or the story guideline that you follow that will bring success. And here's why. In a story, who is the most powerful character? Is it the hero?
Guide.
It's the guide. You're exactly correct, Joel. It's not the hero. It's everybody in our lives, including myself. We're looking for a guide to teach us or show us success. So the guide is the most powerful person in the story. So as we're presenting our social media, we should be presenting from the perspective of being a guide. So let me give you an example of how that might look if we're to do a video or if we're to do a social media presentation and we're trying to attract, let's say, a seller, okay? So we've got a seller. I have one right now that I'm working with who didn't sell. They were an expired listing. I reached out to them and I described a plan, and through talking to this person, the hero would be the seller, right? Through talking to them, I discovered that this failure of their home selling kept them from getting to Indianapolis, so they could be near their grandkids. So then they met our team, and we guided them to set the house up correctly for staging, to price it right, market it effectively, which ultimately what is resulting in is we're getting them to Indianapolis to be near their grandkids by Thanksgiving, which is avoiding the failure of not being near their family. So if we're shooting our videos from the perspective of, instead of, oh, look, here's me at the gym. Who's that about? It's about me. Oh, look, here's me, at the beach or on vacation. It's all about me. Making it about the person that needs a guide and positioning ourselves as the guide and then creating a call to action. We help this seller get their home back on the market. We help them reposition it, price it right. We marketed it well, which allowed them to get it under contract and get sold and be to Indianapolis in time for them to spend time with their grandkids during the holidays. If you want these same results, DM me the word sell now.
I think it's a really important point, because when we talked about our social media strategy, like earlier this week, thinking along the lines of being a guide for our purposes of attracting clients, both buyers and sellers, and then for me personally, sort of attracting agents. If you look at it from the guide perspective, it's not self-serving. What you're doing is you're illustrating and you're documenting what's going on within your career and your business and your day, just showing how you're a guide. And I think people will gain confidence, a lot more confidence from you telling them how great you are versus how you're illustrating how you helped somebody else. I think there's just an easier way for people to connect with that, consume the information that you're giving them, and feel good about you guiding them on whatever journey they're on, whether it's to buy, whether it's to sell, whether it's to move out of town, whether it's an agent that's looking for more help. I think that there's a lot more value and a lot more connection that you can gain by being a guide versus being the hero and making it all about me.
Any questions about the story brand model?
Not at all. Makes sense.
It's awesome.
All right, terrific. If we want to attract people to us, we have to bring value to them. So rather than positioning ourselves as the hero, position yourselves as the guide, and people will naturally be attracted to you. If you guys have questions about this, please post them in the chat and we'll do our best to answer them. Awesome. So Ben, what's next?
Yeah, so I know we have a couple of things to cover, and we're not going to get nearly to everything that we want to chat about. So for those of you who don't know, and we're not at the beginning of the call, Mark Raymond's a good friend of mine. We've been sort of growing as people and as individuals, both on Mastermind calls and in-person events for the better part of 4 or 5 years now? Yeah. It's been really interesting. Mark is out of the Orlando, Florida market. We are both coaching clients of Aaron DeBello and have just created a great relationship over the years. We spent a bunch of time when we were down in Miami together. And I just think Mark has a really interesting perspective on things. We always get into some really good discussions when he and I talk about business. And so I invited and collaborated with him on this call to make sure that we could have different perspectives on some of these topics. So I know, Mark, you had a couple of things that you takeaways from the event that you wanted to share. What was sort of your biggest takeaway from EXPCon over the last week?
Well, for me, one of my biggest failures this last year was that I wasn't speaking to my database. And there was one speaker, and Ben, maybe you can help me with his name. He was a gentleman that owned the restaurant. He was the restaurateur, and he was
his name's Will Giarda. He was the if anybody knows the show The Bear on FX about the restaurant. He's essentially the guy who that story was loosely based on. But yeah, it's a really good. He wrote the book. Did you say this? Unreasonable Hospitality.
Correct.
Yeah.
And if it's one thing that I learned from him, and also Jesse Eitzler, he co-founded Marquis Jets, a private aircraft leasing company, and he subsequently sold it to NetJets and Zyco, and then he also founded Coconut Water with Matt Damon was his partner, which he helped take national. He took it national and eventually sold it to Coca-Cola. So two very, very super successful people. And what I failed to do last year really well, and I'm gonna be honest here. I failed last year, number one, to have a business plan for this year, and hence my numbers are down about 35% from last year. So I will never not have a business plan again. But one of the things that in not having the plan, I wasn't doing what I committed to, which was to stay in touch with my database, at least 50 touches a year. So I started to, as I listened to these gentlemen, I started to realize the value of staying in touch. And Jesse Eitzler, he said, business can be transactional, but relationships can't. Relationships, we have to make a connection with people. Otherwise, they won't see the value in working with us. And there's three things that he shared to do with clients every single time that we're on the phone with them. He said, number one, if there's a reason to, genuinely and truthfully, you compliment them, congratulate them, and you console them. How many times have we called someone and they, we're having a conversation, there might be a past client or even a friend or a relative, and they say something great, and we might, I don't know, in my experience, I might just roll right over it and not take a pause and just point out the value of that for that person. Or congratulate them. Your son just graduated from college, congratulations. Or perhaps we find out that someone had a loss. In those moments, we have to take that time to slow down so that we can actually speed up in the relationship. Because
and I think that's important, Mark, because I very often at the beginning of my career too, I would have a genuine purpose for the call, and the purpose for the call was to ask for business, right? Present some value and then ask for business. But what was very clear over the course of time was that I was perceived as somebody who could get a job done, but not somebody that people enjoyed necessarily working with or getting to know, because I was very, very transactional in what I was doing on a monthly basis. And what that caused is that caused me to have to continually find new business, because the relationship wasn't valuable enough for the client for them to provide business back to me. They were like, all right, well, this is an even exchange of value. You did your job. We paid you the money that we paid you. You accomplished the goal. We both went our separate ways. And that was a value exchange that was okay for everybody, but it didn't leave them feeling gratitude and like they were getting the better end of the deal, which won't make them motivated to go out and provide value back. And not that that should be the main goal, but Will talked about providing value into, like, think about it like a bank account. With these relationships, you have to be able to deposit value into the bank account before you can take any withdrawals.
Yep.
Right. So if you provide value, and then you need to ask for something, and then you call your client and you say, you know what, Pedro, I set a goal to sell 15 homes this year. I'm calling you because I need to get the message out. I want to help as many people as possible. If you've provided value to them over time, they're going to be that much more motivated to help you accomplish yours and provide value back to you.
Ben, on that, I'd like to share a script because I want something tactical for everyone to take away from this in terms of calling database. And I don't know about you all, but for a long time, I was not afraid to pick up the phone and call somebody that I didn't know. But interestingly enough, I was afraid to pick up the phone and call people that I did know. And one of the tools that I've used.
Does anybody else feel the same way?
Who else has
By
experienced?
show of hands, anybody? I mean, that's me too.
Here's what was going on in my mind. In my mind, I felt that I was bothering these people because, the transaction's done, and I was thinking too transactional in my head. And so for me to get past it, I came up with the concept, if I give them something, every coach that I've always had has always said, well, if you're going to the call and you're bringing value and you're giving them something, well, then there's no reason that you should feel like you're bothering them because you're bringing value. So I would like to talk to you guys about what I call a give, ask, give sandwich. Okay? Who would role play with me other than Ben? I don't want to role play with Ben.
Come on.
Please raise your hand.
Pedro's going to do it. I'm going to mic mine, but Pedro will do it.
All right, Pedro, you're my past client, okay?
Good.
Awesome. So we're going to do the give, ask, give sandwich. So ring, ring, ring.
Hello.
Hello, Pedro.
Hey.
Pedro, it's Mark Ramey. How are you?
Hey, Mark. I'm doing well. Yourself?
I'm doing really well. I'm curious, how did you and your family fare through the storm? Did you make it through the hurricane okay? Are you guys safe?
Yeah, luckily everyone's okay. How about you, Mark?
You know what? I have to say our family's super fortunate. We just lost power for a day and a half. I had to take a shower or a bath in my swimming pool because we lost water also. But other than that, we're doing really good. So no damage and everyone's safe. Thank you for asking. I appreciate it. So Pedro, I'm curious. I have some good news for you today. Do you have just a moment that I can share it with you?
Absolutely, Mark.
In the news recently, we've seen that interest rates have risen. In fact, they're still a little bit higher than what they were just a year and a half, 2 years ago. The good news is even with all that going on, I've observed that in your community, your home's value has gone up about 5 to 7%.
Oh, wow.
So congratulations. I wanted to call and share that information with you. Congratulations on that.
Thank you, Mark. But I don't plan on selling anytime soon.
That's perfect. I'm glad you love your home, and I'm super happy that you're loving where you're at. So what I've observed, Pedro, is because interest rates have gone off or gone a little bit higher, inventory is still super, super low. And because inventory is still low, that's what's driven your price up. So do you mind if I ask you a favor?
Absolutely, Mark.
So currently I'm working with about 5 families, and we're looking for good homes for them. And with inventory being super low, we're just having a really hard time finding good homes for these families. So I'm just curious, who do you know that perhaps could benefit from selling a home that maybe I can create a win-win for those families and the families that we're working with? Anyone come to mind?
Well, my neighbor Mike was talking about it last week, and he's thinking of moving down to Florida, so he might be making a move.
Wow. So it sounds like your neighbor is thinking about making a move. He's thinking about getting down to Florida.
Yeah, that's right. I can do that. I can give him your phone number so that way he can give you a call, and maybe he'll want to do something. I'm not sure.
Pedro, that would be so meaningful. Now, as I'm doing this, I'm noticing, is this the neighbor if I was looking at your house to the right of you, if I'm looking at it from the street, or the one to the left?
Yeah, he's right to the right of me. So he's
Is that Jason
first one on the
Stevens?
street.
Is that Jason Stevens?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I see that here. Perfect. So, terrific. Do you think he'd mind if I gave him a call just to introduce myself and share information on the market?
Yeah, I'm sure he wouldn't mind.
Okay. What's the best number for me to reach him at?
Yada, yada, yada.
Okay, wonderful. I'm grateful for that information, Pedro. And one last thing, I just wanted to check in with you. Our Rotary Club, again, this year we're doing the Taste of Dr. Phillips. Can I put you down for a ticket? We're going to have 22 restaurants there this year.
Yeah, I'd love to connect, Mark. I can definitely make it down.
That'll be my gift to you. I'll get you a ticket. And I'm super, super grateful for you thinking of me with people that we can serve. Are there any other questions that I can help you with?
No, that's all, Mark. I'll definitely keep you in mind if I have any real estate needs.
Awesome.
Appreciate the call.
Thank you, Pedro. I appreciate you very much. Have an awesome day.
You too, Mark.
Okay. So, thoughts, comments on how that call just went? Anybody?
Masterful.
So here's what I noticed, guys. What I've always been impressed with Mark, his pace and delivery is calm and thoughtful. So I think what you'll notice is, and myself included, when we get on the phone with a client, especially if we're uncomfortable, which if I asked anyone else on this call to role play that conversation with anyone else on this call, my guess is that the vast majority of us sitting here would pick up our pace of our conversation. We would act nervous. We would stumble over our words. And so what happens is over time when you're making these calls, because if any of you, which a lot of you have been in my events before, the value and how much I talk about contacting your database. I mean, I talk about it at almost every session that we have, because that's how much value there is in making these calls. And over time, if your pace is good and you're calm and you're providing value, that conversation is just going to be a lot easier for you to have versus what we do. If you guys make calls right now, I know the vast majority of you do this, it's like, hey, Mark, it's Ben. How are the kids? How are the family? What's going on at this event? All this kind of shit. Never do you provide any value illustrating that you're the professional real estate agent. Very rarely do you go in because you have an intention just to get the call done, right? So, and you're not asking for business at the end. So the value of that phone call goes down dramatically if you're not following this sort of cadence of either give, ask, give, or providing value and asking for business and then being appreciative and showing gratitude at the end. And
the other thing, Ben, thank you. If I could, the other thing that I want everyone to take note of is when I was asking for me or was I asking for others?
Others.
So if you notice, the dialogue was like this. I'm currently working with 5 families. That's not about me. I'm curious, who do you know that could benefit from selling their house so I could create a win-win for the families that we're working with and the families that you know? That's about families, guys. So when we're delivering the message from that perspective, it's not like I'm calling and saying, who do you know that I could work with so that I could get a deal? That's a very different request. And then as Ben was able to, what noticed is that at the end, I was giving at the end and I was giving at the beginning. So the last thing that client's remembering is not going to be that I asked them for anything. So,
and I think if you're, Mark has some value that he can give at the end. I think if you're struggling to give at the end, at the very least, end with gratitude.
Mm-hmm.
So like that was a lot of the times what I would end with. So in the similar situation, I would just sit there and I'd say, listen, Pedro, I really want to thank you for the time that you took today and for thinking about your neighbor who might be considering moving. It's because of clients like you that I've been able to help and serve so many others throughout the community. And I just very sincerely, I want to say thank you for that. Right? When they leave, and you could argue that that's just giving gratitude back versus giving a specific thing, but that's an easy way for you to wrap up that call. Does that make sense? Good.
How many of you think you can use this with your own database? Show of hands. Will this help you? Yay, yay.
So before we move on to this, I wanted to touch on this idea of unreasonable hospitality. It was one of the things that I was going to talk about too, because I think that this book had, in this keynote speech that we heard had so much value in it. One of them was obviously the relationships or currency, but another had to do with sort of evaluating the relationship that we have with our clients and what are those touch points before, during, and after each time we do business, or when we meet somebody? What are the touch points that are going to determine the relationship that we have with that client? So if we think about it from the perspective of, let's say somebody that comes to our open house that we've never met before, right? These touch points can be, as they're pulling down the street, do we have a sign that's appropriate to guide them in the right direction? Does the sign look like shit, or does it look professional and put together? When they drive up to the house at the beginning of the open house, are we getting out of the car and running into the house and they're standing behind us as we jiggle the lockbox and flip on the lights? Or are we showing up 15, 20, 30 minutes early to get prepared to receive those people? Right? When they stand in front of us and they sign in on an open house sheet, do we have enough pens? Are the blocks that they write their name in, are those big enough? What do we give them when they enter the house? Because it's a representation of how much we value the relationship we have with our clients. Are we giving them a flimsy piece of paper with an MLS printed on it? Or are we spending $2 to get a professional brochure done so that we can illustrate how much we value collecting 10 or 15, 20, 30, $40,000 from a client, but we don't have enough money to spend $2 on a good brochure? Even if a family walks in and they've got mom and dad and cousin Eddie and they take 5 of them for one family. I don't know about you, that pisses me off sometimes, but that's the point. That's a touch point, right? The conversation that we have with them, how much eye contact that we're giving them, the value that we provide to them, the fact that we follow up after an open house with a text message. Do you have any questions about the house? Here's what's going on with the offer situation. How many times have people come into an open house, ask a question, the agent says, I'll get back to you on that, and they never reach out and give them the answer? I'm guilty of that personally, so I know every one of you has done it. That's a touch point. That person may determine the value of the relationship that you have with them based on that one touch point. And if you start to write down the touch points that each client has before, during, after the relationship, all of those touch points will add up to how much of a quality relationship you have with them, and that will materially determine whether or not that client will be a resource and provide value to you in the future. So it's a very easy thing for you to start to go, what are all of the individual touch points that a client has? Buyers, sellers, people throughout the community, right? These are important things to start to look at. And what Will did very well was he illustrated how he looked to increase the experience a client would have at every single touch point. And one of the things that he spoke about on the stage, which I thought was a really good example, he said that, so imagine this is downtown New York. It's the #1 restaurant in the entire world. He determined that one of the touch points that was most contentious with his clients was he would walk. So when it was time to end the meal, obviously the bill that these people are getting is enormous because it's one of the best restaurants in the world. So they charge a lot of money, right? What he said was that when people would ask for the bill at the end of the meal, they immediately became obnoxiously impatient about getting the bill and leaving. Has anybody ever asked for a bill and it's taken too long and you've just sat there stewing about how long it's taken to get the bill? Anybody else but me? Of course you have, right? Like we all sit there and we're like, fuck, I got to get going. Like now I'm ready to leave. I've been sitting here for half an hour just chit-chatting, but now that I've asked for the bill, I want to get the hell out of here, right? And so they can't bring that bill quick enough. And then even when they do, they slap down a bill that's obnoxiously high. And that's how they end the interaction. That's a touch point that ends the relationship. Is they're impatient for the bill, and then they get a huge bill, and then they pay the huge bill and they leave. So what he did was he would come over to the table. There's a couple sitting at the table towards the end of the meal. They don't want anything else. He would bring over a bottle of cognac and 2 sipper glasses. He would pour 2 glasses of cognac for the client, the person that was eating. And he would say, hey, listen, we've really enjoyed having you at the restaurant tonight. Please have a complimentary glass of cognac. I'm going to leave the bottle here. He would put the bottle of cognac on the table and he would say, I'm going to leave the bottle here. If you guys want any more, you can take as much as you'd like. And then he dropped the bill on the table. Now think about the experience of that person that's sitting at the restaurant, had an amazing meal, wants to sit around and enjoy the restaurant, the experience, all of that kind of stuff. They want to talk for another half an hour. If you bring the bill over without anything else, what does that give the client the impression of? The person that's sitting down and eating, what do they feel if you just bring the bill over?
Transactional.
It's all transactional.
I think it gives them the impression that you want them to leave, right? So now they feel like you're trying to kick them out. And I'm, again, obnoxiously concerned about what other people think. I work on it, don't worry. But like, I'm obnoxiously concerned. So now I'm like, well, they want me to leave because they want to fill the table again. And if I don't leave, then this waiter won't be able to turn over the table. They won't get to, make as much money tonight. That's what's going through my head if somebody drops a bill on the table before I'm ready. But if they say, hey, here's a complimentary glass of cognac, we're going to leave the bottle, I don't feel like they're kicking me out. I don't feel like they're rushing me. And even when I'm paying the bill, I'm happier to pay the bill. They said that waiters who leave a mint with the bill, when they present the bill, the average tip is 17% higher when they leave a mint. A 5-cent mint gets you 17% increase, which again, you're providing very limited value that perhaps is not commensurate to the return that you get. Yeah. People will give way more if they feel like they've received value from you. So if you go back to this idea that these touch points are really important to create the relationship, you can really, really take advantage. So that's one of them. And then the other big one was the greatest gesture that you can do is bespoke to the receiver. So I'm going to say that again. The greatest gesture is bespoke to the receiver.
Ben, please define the word bespoke, because when you first said that, I didn't know what that meant.
Yeah, so bespoke is unique. So the greatest gesture that you can give is unique to the receiver of the gift or gesture. So
Ben, I'm imagining that would be like, instead of, I've got a client that perhaps I've done 4 transactions with them, every single time they got a cutting board from me, the same one. That's not bespoke, is it?
Well, it's also likely got your name and business address.
And who's that about, right?
Yeah,
it's about me. It's not about them.
I'm sorry. Who the fuck is pulling out at a party a cutting board with a company logo on it? That's about you,
right?
But this example of, if you've ever received a bespoke gesture, which all of us have, something that is unique and thoughtful, it doesn't matter the cost of it. It doesn't matter like how big or small it is. If you believe that it's intentional for who you are, I think that that's where the true value is. So when we think about, go ahead, Mark.
Can I share the example that he gave? Here's what he did. This was the author of the book, and actually the guy who ran the restaurant who gave the talk. Please share his name again, Ben. He said,
Will Giardia.
Yeah, he said the most important thing that ever happened for me, because he was moving from one place in New York in Manhattan to another. And he said, the agent that I worked with, they listed and sold my house or my flat, and they found me my next flat. So while his place was on the market, the agent had to go and show up for every showing. The agent would go into the house, and over the course of time, he would take pictures, open the refrigerator and take pictures, open the refrigerator, take pictures. Every time he went, like probably it was at least 10 or 15 times. Then when they closed on the property, he said the day they showed up, they went into the new flat that they purchased. They opened the refrigerator. Everything that, like, if there was a specific brand of yogurt, if there was a specific lunch meat, if there was a specific type of food. Now that is, what's that word again? Bespoken. Thank you. That was bespoken of that family. It was bespoken of that person. And it's the things that the point that he was making was, I never felt more honored and looked after because this was specific to me and my family. So, and it doesn't have to necessarily be that, but it's not the same cutting board 4 times. just because someone transacted, it's what can we do that's out of the norm, that's causing someone to say, hey, you paid attention to me and what I really want. And we spend a lot of time with clients over the course of a listing or over the course of, when we're finding them a home. We can ask them questions that can help us figure that out. Our staff, our team members can ask them those questions.
And this can be applicable, guys, in every aspect of life, right? Like when we look at what gestures we're putting out, what we're doing for other people, it creates just a better relationship, regardless of whether it's, a family member or a friend, what you provide at outings or, throughout the community, certainly our clients. But this is all really good just for relationships in general, to understand and appreciate how valuable this information is. And every relationship, again, is giving value so that when it comes time to sort of make a withdrawal from that relationship, it is done with, unmatched enthusiasm by the other person. So
They're
I think
excited to help
about
us.
these things. Yeah. If you think about these things, how can you make these? It just requires intention, guys. It's just very specifically intentional for what you're doing and the quality of the relationship that you want. What he did say was, he said that these gestures, these bespoke gestures, you can see common themes within them. And I think that we can use that within our industry too. So his example was, it would be very, very common in the restaurant industry, especially a high-end place like this, for people to get engaged at a dinner like this. So they would see it all the time. And it's very customary for a high-end restaurant to be able to bring a bottle of champagne for them on the house to celebrate that big day. But what they did was they went across the street to the Tiffany store. They asked Tiffany to produce these champagne flutes, and they would be different than what they would use to serve normally. But if somebody got engaged, they bring them a bottle of champagne and they bring these 2 glasses. And not to their knowledge, when they were done with the glasses, they would go back, they'd wash them, they'd clean them, they'd dry them, they'd put them back in this beautiful box, and then they bring the box out and present that to the people at the restaurant. And they would say, hey, listen, our appreciation for you guys showing up and we're so excited for you guys. We wanted to just give you these beautiful Tiffany glasses that celebrated your first drink together as an engaged couple. Think about how that was common. So in the back, they would have a closet full of these champagne flutes, right? But it felt bespoke to them. It felt like it was very intentional to them. And think about that person. He said that when, the best food in the world would be served, and that gesture would be what people remember. They don't remember the food. They remember that gesture. And how powerful is that?
How many of you on this call are doing something that we should know about? Please share what you're doing if you think it's something that is specific or special.
So over the years, what we've done here at the office is we've created a couple of things as closing gifts. So what we do is we take all of our professional photography and we put it into a chapbook, and we get it printed for each individual. Do we have one of those? Andy? We get it printed with the MLS listing sheet, the timeline. It's all kind of stamped. And the reason that we see a lot of value in doing that is because when people leave their houses, they might remember it. They might have some photos from the inside, but typically the house is going to look the best when they go to market. And if we print these things for them and give it to them as a gift, they're going to be able to keep that. And every once in a while, they'll stumble across it. They'll see it. They'll open it up. It'll bring back memories. It'll bring back that period of time within their life that they'll finally look back and remember exactly where they were and what they were doing. In addition to other people, we send out the front photo of a property to a woman locally who watercolors the front of the house into a beautiful watercolor, and then we frame it and we give it to them. I have one that we did for my old house, and it's up in one of my hallways. And every time I look at it, it brings me back to that moment in time where, my daughter was born at that house. That was where I proposed to my wife. So being reminded of that again, that's a gesture that can have a lasting impact on people, and it doesn't take that much intention, right? But how many of these things can we put together to really show the value that we've received from them, but also just show how much that relationship means to us? So feel free to steal the idea. If you guys need any information on that, just reach out. We'll send you exactly who we use and what we do. But those are the unique things. Rather than giving somebody, again, I use this cutting board with your logo on it because we see it all the time, right? Like that, a quarter of the entire cutting board has your logo on it. That's about you. That's not unique. Nobody's going, oh shit, you got to see this cutting board that my realtor gave me, right? It's just not going to happen. So I think start thinking about the relationships that you have with your clients and what you can do to really have and increase the value of that relationship. Any questions on that? So I know, Mark, we've got like about 15 minutes left. It's amazing how much an hour and a half, how 90 minutes will go by so quick. But I know both of us had on our list to chat about, because we received a lot of information at this event about mindset. And so I know you and I both sort of had some ideas on it. So I'd like to share a couple, and then Mark, if you want to interject and share a couple as well, that'd be great. Does that sound good?
Yeah, mine was specifically around my why and a business plan.
Okay.
Because I think going into 2025, if we don't have a business plan, we're setting ourselves up for failure.
Yeah.
So you mind if I start
Go
on
right
that?
at it. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So question. Well, first, let me do a be honest. Last year, I've been selling real estate since 2002. And last year, I failed miserably. This year, 2024. And I can only attribute it to one thing. For 20 years, I've created a business plan every single year. Last year, I didn't. It allowed myself to veer off, and my business was affected by 35%. And what I realized is whenever I would create a business plan, the thing that I got most passionate about in the business plan was when I got to create my why. So what is our why? Well, I spent some time when I did my business plan and I wrote it out. My why, for example, if I'm going to sell 60 homes this year, that's going to be $600,000 in income. All right. Now, the reason why a why is valuable is because when I wake up in the morning, I don't jump out of bed to go and make $600,000 or to do another deal. I mean, how many of you would actually jump out of bed just to go do another deal? I mean, is that really motivating us? Is it really exciting? I don't know about you guys, but it's not for me. So when my coach started to tell me, if you don't have a correct why, then you're not passionate about what you're going to do, and you're not going to be willing to do what you've committed to do in order to get the result that you're looking for. So, for example, if my goal this year is 60 listings sold, I focus on listings in my transactions. So I know, and in order for this to be effective, you have to identify 3 things. Number one, what are your personal expenses each and every month? What's the average? For me, it's about $10,000. So that's $120,000. Then I need to figure out what's my business expenses. My business expenses, including my salary and contribution to my 401k, maxing it out, is about $300,000. And then how much am I going to pay in tax? What I know is each year I pay about $42,000 in tax. Okay. That leaves me, after everything, all of that, $138,000. Now here, so you see, I have to do, that tells me that I need to do at least about 42 transactions, because I'm $10,000 a deal, right? For me to just meet my nut, for me to cover my personal business expenses and my taxes, because I can't avoid paying those. Now here's where the why part comes in, the part that we love. I've got $138,000 left. Part of my why this year is I want to invest at least $85,000 into owning real estate, because that's going to bring me passive income. That's going to allow me at some point to get off of the real estate transaction hamster wheel. So that leaves me $53,000 left. So my husband and I, we contribute to a dear friend of mine. She has three kids. Two of them are 8 and two of them are 6 years old. Derek and I don't have our own kids. So part of my giving back, which causes me to be filled up, is we give $7,000 a year to pay for their Florida prepaid college. That's part of my giving. I'm going to give 10%. I'm going to be giving $30,000 away this year. So that leaves $23,000 left that I can give. The other $23,000 is going to be given to the foundation that I'm the president of that gives back into our community. I'm going to just randomly give to people that I see that need things throughout the course of the year because that fills me up. And then Derek and we want to take a Mediterranean cruise, which is going to be about $20,000 to do that with my cousin Aaron, my cousin Eric, and dear friends. And I'm so stoked about doing that. So after everything's said and done, I've spent all the money except for $3,000. So that $138,000 that I will generate aside in addition to what I need, that's my why. That's what causes me to, when I'm like, you know what? I don't know that I can make another call. It's 7:00 at night tonight. I don't want to do that lead follow-up. Wait a minute. Do I want to go on that Disney cruise in the Mediterranean with my cousin Eric and Aaron? Wait a minute. Do I want to make sure that Isaiah and Emery have their college paid for? I got to make this call.
So here's what comes up for me. One of the things that I noted at the event, somebody had said, and I forget who it was, but they said general ambition gives you anxiety, but specific ambition gives you direction. So I'm going to say that again.
We need more anxiety, right? When we're in the
right, but that's a lot of what Mark just alluded to, right? General ambition gives you anxiety. So general ambition looks like I want to make $500,000 this year. I'd like to make 100,000. I'd like to make 250. Here's what I'd like to do. I'd like to accomplish these goals, but there's nothing specific about it, right? And that's what Mark is getting to with your business plan. We talked about that for those of you who collaborate with me at events. We talked about that at the beginning of the year, and that's what we're going to be talking about at the next event is specifically the business plan that we put in place. But if you don't have specific ambition, if Mark doesn't want to allocate a certain amount of his yearly income and overage to help kids in his community, to do these things with his husband, to have these experiences, to live the life that he wants, he says, oh, well, I have $135,000 left over. Well, the odds that you're going to be able to push yourself to accomplish the goals, to do all of those extra things that you don't need the money for, people typically, I guarantee you, most people on this call will make enough money to pay the bills that they have to pay, but they typically won't make any more because they're driven enough to make sure that they don't fail, but they never are driven enough with specific ambition and specific goals to accomplish outsized results. So my goal, and I've talked to a lot of you guys about this, my goal is to invest enough money into depreciable assets on an annual basis that will not only give me residual income, but will all but eliminate my tax liability. So this year, I'm going to pay around $22,000 in taxes, total, state and fed. So the only way that you're going to be able to do that is by having enough money to invest in assets that are depreciable, according to IRS tax code, that you can depreciate enough on an annualized basis and or get tax credits through investment portals to all but eliminate your tax liability. So all of these things, you're going to have very specific goals, specific ambition. So again, general ambition gives you anxiety. I want to make $500,000, but if you don't get specific about it, you're just going to sit in this anxious thing. How do I do it? What do I do? Oh, I'm not doing enough. Well, I don't know what to do. Every day you wake up, if you don't have a specific goal, you're going to be beating yourself up about who to do what, where, when, how, why. And that's just what it's going to give you is it's going to discourage you over time from actually doing the activities that will cause the results in order to put you in a position to accomplish your goals. And so that's when Mark, and I'll hand it back to you, Mark, that's what it goes back to. Specific activities and planned goals that you have, the business plan that you put out on for yourself on the at the beginning of the year or at the end of the year for the following year.
Thank you. So I'm just looking up right now because I didn't remember. SMART. Who knows what SMART goal is? It's specific, right? What else is it?
Measurable.
Measured.
Measurable, right? A is attainable. I know that.
Attainable.
Realistic.
Realistic and
time bound.
oh,
Time bound. So, if we're not that specific, then we're like a rudderless boat. And that's how I felt last year, guys. I mean, in all my ego, I'm like, oh, I've been doing this for 20 years. I want you to know I failed last year because I didn't put this in writing. And here's how I know that this is real. How many of you were in the business in 2008? Freddie, yeah, I know you were in the business. Yes. So in 2008, if you think about it this way, that was one of the worst years for real estate. And what I remember is because I had a plan in place, I did the units. I didn't make a lot of money, but I had to do the units because our average price dropped like 22% a year. It was sickening. And yet I did the units that got me to my outcome. And so if I know that if I had a plan in 2008 that caused me to get to my goal, I actually went back and looked to prove it. Then there's no reason why in 2024 that I shouldn't have been able to do the same thing. Even if the market was down 33%, my business was down 35%, it didn't have to be. Because I wasn't focusing on what I was passionate about. I let myself get distracted. Have any of you ever experienced that before? If you have, raise your hand. Yeah, that's me. Thank you, Hansel, for your honesty. Do you have a question, Hansel, or were you just kind of letting me be in there with me? Thank you. So, that said, I really don't want anybody to walk away from this experience. Now is the time that we should be setting our goals. Now is the time that we should be having the conversations with our spouses, with our team members, with our family. Hey, family, if we could do anything next year, where would you want to go, kids? Oh, let's go to Disney World. Now, if you set that as a goal, now your kids are going to help you stay accountable to that goal, right? Because they know about that goal. But unless we actually write it down, we can't get passionate about it. And again, it starts with identifying, what's my personal expenses, what's my business expenses, and what's my taxes. Another thing that I would like to bring up that I think every person should put into your goals is, and I didn't think about this until 5 years ago when I was starting to coach with Aaron. How many of you have business and personal reserves? Yes, I love to see the hands that are coming up on this. I got to tell you, my business and personal reserve, you know what it used to be? It was a credit card at like 22, 23% interest. When we have personal and business reserves, can we sleep at night? I can sleep at night because I've set money aside to where if all hell broke loose, that I've got resources. So maybe what if part of that plan that you write down where the money is going to be allocated this year, what if part of that is to get 1 or 2 months reserves if you don't have reserves yet, so that you can sleep at night and you can have peace. And then when that deal falls through, deals fall through, right? Or if that listing says, you know what, we want to rent, then I'm not like, there's no anxiety. I'm like, okay, next. And I can move forward peacefully and calmly to go to that next client without bringing anxiety into that transaction. So
I think what comes up for me, Mark, and one of the things that I wanted to just share with everybody from the mindset perspective is that, he mentioned suffering and passion. You mentioned passion, right?
Mm-hmm.
Suffering has a bad rap. I think we as individuals look at suffering as something we want to try to avoid.
Mm.
But the root word of passion comes from suffering. So if we have a passion about something, in all likelihood, that passion is going to drive us to suffer in one form or fashion in order to follow that passion that we have.
Yep.
right? So I think suffering has a bad rap. It's assumed that we want to just obtain this space where we're happy and fulfilled all the time. I think
That's not reality. That's
Yeah.
not my reality.
And passion is more valuable than happiness, in my opinion. And if you believe that too, then I think suffering just comes right along with passion.
Yeah.
And so when you think about setting these goals, don't set them just to be happy, just to be sort of cozy and have it be easy.
Right.
Understand that suffering is a valuable tool in order to guide your passion and really connect with that.
Drive us.
So when you do these goals, when you set the goals in order to accomplish these things, make them hard. There's more value. The best I've ever felt in life is sort of following a passion and knowing that I'm doing everything I can, regardless of whether there's suffering involved. The most fulfilled I felt is when I'm actively involved in following a passion of mine. Regardless of the outcome, regardless of whether I feel uncomfortable or awkward, whether or not I hit the actual goal is irrelevant at that point. It's the feeling of going through it. So don't avoid suffering. And I think that will help guide your business plan for 2025 and beyond.
Lean into it.
Yeah. So I'm noticing our time. I want to be respectful of everybody's time here. So I want to thank everybody for coming. I'm going to send out a follow-up email. We're going to be doing, for those of you who are up here in the Northeast, our next in-person event here at my office in downtown Mansfield is going to be on December 3rd, which is a Tuesday from 10 to 12. So if you'd like to attend, we can typically host about 22 to 25 agents here at the office. So once we get booked up, we'll be booked up. But if you guys are interested, we're also going to try to figure out a way that we can stream it live on social media so that folks that aren't local to us can still consume the content. Even if you're partnered with Mark down in Florida or anywhere else, if you'd like to be involved, just certainly reach out. We'll keep you in the loop on when we do those events, and hopefully you can join us for those. So before we get going, does anybody have any specific questions? I mean, I'm in no rush, but also want to be respectful of everybody's time. Anybody have any specific questions on what Mark and I reviewed today?
Hey, Ben, real quick, can I jump in?
Yeah, go ahead.
So first and foremost, I just wanted to thank my old friend here, Ben, for inviting me to this mastermind. I always get value from these kind of meetings with other real estate professionals, even in other states, because as realtors, no matter where we do business, we all go through the same thing, and we have to deal with, posting our settlements and social media and lead generation and everything. So I just wanted to thank you. I greatly appreciate for, inviting me on, and also want to congratulate you and the Esposito Realty Group and all the great things you're doing. It's marvelous to see. So I appreciate it.
Yeah, Gabe, thank you so much. And this is to talk about goals and passions. I mean, this is what I want to do with the rest of my life. I've spent 20 years in this business, doing the business, and I've spent a lot of time coaching and training and collaborating in mastermind groups, training sessions. And I really feel much more passionate about sharing that message and being a guide for real estate agents to help them accomplish their goals. So going forward, that is my true intention and passion, is to do worthwhile work with people that I like and enjoy and have as much impact on other people as I can. And so, I'm living what I am telling you to do about building these relationships with value. And I truly believe that we as an industry and group of real estate agents can have a massive impact on others, not only our clients, but on other people within the industry. So I'm hopeful that you guys are going to go out and share that message and be that impact in that relationship with other people. And I'll keep charging in this direction and hope that we can collaborate as much as possible. So thank you for that. Mark, thank you so much for joining us. Any final words from you?
We're moving into the holidays, and it's the time of the year when most agents choose to just check out. And if you can, please put your business plan in place and have your why in place. Talk to your family, talk to the people that are important to you, so that you can start 2025 today. You can begin it now, because our business is in 90-day cycles. And other than that, I'm so grateful for the energy in this event. And Ben, this platform, I thank you kindly for allowing myself and the people in our organization to be part of this. And we look forward to growing with all of you. Let's go, let's grow.
All right, guys, thank you again. Have a wonderful day. And I'm sure I'll talk to most of you guys pretty soon. So take care, guys.